Artificial intelligence is set to completely change healthcare. It promises to do amazing things, like predict diseases and create personalized treatments. But what happens when the very tools we build to help us end up learning our own worst biases?
It sounds like a weird question, right? I mean, code is just math. It should be totally objective. But as we're about to see, the answer is a big, and frankly, a pretty dangerous yes.
Okay, so let's look at a real-world case. Take a look at this number. This is the percentage of Black patients that a widely used commercial algorithm flagged as needing extra care. Seems pretty straightforward.
But then, look at this number. This is the percentage of Black patients who actually should have been flagged for those programs, based on how sick they really were. That gap? Wow, it's huge. And it had very real consequences for millions of people.
So, what on earth happened here? How did an algorithm get it so wrong? Well, that brings us to our first section, a hidden and pretty shocking health bias that was uncovered in a landmark study.
So, back in 2019, a study led by Ziad Obermeyer found something incredible. An algorithm, one that was literally designed to find the sickest people to help them, was doing the exact opposite. It was systematically pushing healthier white patients to the front of the line, ahead of Black patients who were, by all objective medical standards, much, much sicker.
And the researchers, they didn't pull any punches. Their conclusion was brutally direct. They found that if a Black patient and a white patient had the exact same risk score from the algorithm, the Black patient was significantly sicker. The system wasn't just a little bit off. Its whole calibration was fundamentally broken.
But how? How could a machine make such a deeply flawed decision? Well, that gets us to the technical heart of the problem, what I like to call the cost of using a proxy.
This specific problem actually has a name. It's called label choice bias. This is what happens when you tell an algorithm to predict one thing as a stand-in, a proxy for what you really care about. And the thing is, sometimes that proxy is just deeply, deeply flawed.
And this right here, this is the aha moment. The goal, the thing they wanted to do, was predict a patient's future health needs. But the algorithm wasn't trained on health data. It was trained to predict future healthcare costs. The designers just assumed that cost equals need.
And here's the crucial point. That assumption is just flat out wrong. Because of systemic inequities and barriers in the real world, less money is historically spent on Black patients, even when they have the same level of illness as white patients. The algorithm learned this financial pattern perfectly. It didn't learn to see sickness, it just learned to see a history of unequal spending.
And this issue of flawed data, it goes even deeper than that. I'm talking right down to our DNA. This reveals a problem that's even more foundational to how we build these AI systems.
Just take a look at the data that powers the entire field of precision medicine. The biggest genomic database out there is currently 95% European. Let that sink in, 95%. This means our basic understanding of human genetics is based on just a tiny, tiny slice of human diversity.
This huge imbalance is called ascertainment bias, and its consequences are just enormous. When our data is this skewed, the therapies and medicines we develop from it are often less effective for pretty much anyone who isn't of European descent. We're literally programming blind spots into the future of medicine.
Okay, so that's a pretty sobering picture. But it's not all bad news. Researchers aren't just pointing out the problem, they're actively building solutions, which brings us to our final section, building fairer AI. So the way forward isn't just one single thing. It really needs a two-pronged approach. We need smarter, more equitable technology, for sure, but we also need clear, human-driven ethical rules to guide the whole industry. So on the tech side, you've got these brilliant innovations popping up, like something called PhyloFrame. It's a type of machine learning that's designed specifically to fix that ancestral bias we just talked about. It actively goes out and incorporates genetic data from diverse populations all around the world. So how's it work? Well, basically, it finds an initial signal for a disease, and then it intentionally expands its search to look for related genes that are known to show up differently across various ancestries. Then it retrains the whole model, forcing it to look at a much more complete, more globally representative picture of our genetics. And what's so cool is the result. You get this ancestry-aware model that's actually more accurate for everyone. By fixing the bias and creating a more complete model, the predictive power gets better across the board. It just goes to show how designing for equity can end up benefiting all of us.
But here's the thing. A slick technical fix, on its own, just isn't enough. We can't just invent our way out of this problem. We also need a shared ethical compass to point us in the right direction.
And that's where things like the National Academy of Medicine's AI Code of Conduct come in. It lays out these clear, really actionable principles. Things like actively look for and report on bias, involve the communities that are actually going to be affected by this stuff, be transparent, monitor how these tools are performing in the real world, and hold people accountable. It's the human oversight that has to go along with the code.
When you boil it all down, AI is really just a powerful mirror. It doesn't invent bias out of thin air. It finds the biases that are already hiding in our systems and our data, and it reflects them back at us with incredible speed and scale. So the final question really is for all of us. Are we going to let this mirror just reflect the same old flaws of our past, or are we going to use it as a tool to finally see those flaws clearly and maybe, just maybe, build a healthier, more equitable future?